This is Anthony, fighting for his life as a weak-ass virgin ant against this fat, ugly monster. But it wasn't always like this. Originally, Anthony was a shut-in, virgin loser who died and got reincarnated as this weak-ass ant. So will he survive, level up, evolve, and conquer this world? Let's find out. The story begins with Anthony naked, feeling like he's drifting in the air. It was super cozy and comfortable until a deep sound woke him up. He thought it was his dad, but nope. It was a transparent window greeting him. The first time in his life anyone greeted him with such kindness and manners. Then, the next moment, the window whispered that he had died, flipping Anthony's world upside down. He finally realized the sound wasn't his dad's. Confused, he wondered, where the hell is he now? The last thing he remembered was being at home reading books. Then, with a jolt of realization, he thought, is this heaven? But if this was heaven, where were the hot angels, the food, and the big mansions? But the voice told him to calm down, saying he'd soon be reborn into a new world and get another shot at life. As Anthony listened, a jolt of realization hit him. He shouted, "This deep, gruff voice sounds exactly like that legendary figure dressed all in white, Gandalf!" But before Anthony could do anything, the voice announced he'd now be reborn on the planet named Pangera. Suddenly, a window appeared in front of Anthony, displaying his stats. Curious and excited, thinking he'd wield legendary magic, Anthony checked his stats, only to find his magic power was 0, and his skills were weird: dig, acid shot, grip, and bite. But it was not the end. His world turned upside down, once again when he noticed his species was not human, but an ant, a hatchling worker. Ant, at that. He wondered if he'd ruined someone's life when he was alive, but then he remembered he was a shut-in loser with no friend, so that was impossible. Furious and angry, before he could say anything, his vision started to blur, his body feeling weird, like it was being squeezed from all sides. It was because Anthony was inside an egg. Though he didn't want to believe it, he realized he really was being reborn as an ant. He started to feel his legs and, with all his might, forced them out of the egg. Finally, after a long few hours, he emerged, exhausted and tired. To Anthony, it still felt like a nightmare. He had gone from a man who kept ants as pets to being an ant himself. As Anthony started to check his surroundings, he noticed everything was pitch black around him, and his vision was also blurry and not good compared to when he was human. He was only able to see a few centimeters ahead clearly. So Anthony decided to explore, and after a while, he noticed a bright light. Excited, he decided to follow the bright light. As he continued to move forward, he started to feel weird in his antennae. He started to feel movements, and from the muddy smell, he figured out he must be somewhere underground. But for some weird reason, he was not able to smell any pheromone. Normally, ants work in groups, and as ants don't have vocals, they communicate through the smell of their body juice. Well, Anthony in this life didn't want to be a loner. He wanted a female ant girlfriend. He was determined to find one. So for hours, he dedicatedly followed the bright light, and finally he smelled an ant's smell. Excited, Anthony hurriedly ran to the end of the bright light, only to be shocked and bewildered. Well, he did find an ant, but it got smashed by this ugly, fat croco monster with a creepy smile. After that, it started to eat the ant with its razor-sharp teeth like eating candy, tearing every part of the ant's body, and the ant died a painful death. Anthony, on the other hand, was watching this horrible scene from the sideline, terrified. He felt like peeing his pants, which he wasn't even wearing. Then Anthony noticed a female ant under the feet of the croco monster. She was crying. Anthony felt really bad. With a serious face, there was only one thing he could do in this situation: run with all his might. Anthony started to run as fast as he could, but there was a dead end. For now, he was safe from that ugly monster, but what if there were more terrifying monsters in this cave? Anthony was getting panicky. He started brainstorming, thinking about what a smart ant would do in this situation. Just then, he realized ants also dig underground, so he started to dig the ground with his little hand, but it wasn't working. Then he remembered ants use their mandibles to dig, so he also started to dig with his head, and it worked. In an instant, Anthony made a huge underground tunnel, dug very deep inside the ground, and finally blocked the entrance so no one could come in. Now, finally, after a long time, Anthony took a sigh of relief. Laying there, he was deep in thought. Normally, new ants should be born inside a colony surrounded by other adult ants, and until he woke up, the only ants he saw became the food of that ugly fat monster. So Anthony concluded that the Croco monster must have been targeting the ants and must have killed all the ants in this area. Just then, he remembered there was a status window he saw before he got reborn. So he wondered if this was a game-like situation, then maybe he would be able to open some sort of menu. Anthony stood up, raised his arms, and started shouting for the menu to open up. But nothing happened, and he felt like a fool doing this in such a dramatic manner. Then he remembered the menu's name was Status Window. So once again, in a dramatic manner, he shouted, "Status Window, open!" And voila, the status window really appeared in front of him, surprising him. Now, looking at the stats, he was confused if these numbers were really high or low, so he moved his attention toward his skill. There, the grip skill confused. He thought, "Will I be able to shoot web like Spider-Man and swing on walls?" But as he tapped onto the grip skill, a hologram appeared in front of him explaining that using this skill, he could hold on to any surface and object without letting go. For example, walking on wall. This really fascinated Anthony, and once again, he started to praise Lord Gandalf, saying his beard is the most luxurious, his eyebrows the most bristly. Anthony was really very happy that he had the ability to access crucial information with a single thought. After that, he checked his other skill. Well, he already knew about the dig skill and grip skill. Third, he can shoot deadly acid from his mouth, which can melt anything it comes in contact with. And fourth, the bite skill, which means he can bite and break tough objects. Now that he knew about all his skills, the most crucial thing that was necessary to survive in this world was information. Like, where the hell is he? And what kind of creatures live in this place other than him and croco beasts? So, Anthony's next objective will be to explore the areas and gather information. But just the thought of encountering unknown, more powerful monsters was enough to shake Anthony's little PP. But Anthony somehow calmed himself down. He knew that panicking would only lead to his destruction. Still, he felt hopeless. He couldn't survive in this situation with just these skills. But just then, the system asked Anthony if he wanted to use his skill points, which once again lightened his mood, and he again started to lick Gandalf's ass. Started to praise Gandalf that his beard will always be fluffy. Now, in front of Anthony, there was one skill point through which he could gain a new skill, and one biomass point through which he could modify his body parts. First, he went to check all the available skills. There he found 5 skills, which made it hard to choose from. If he chose Dash, he would be able to run fast from his enemies. Tunnel Sense would make it easier for him to explore, and Chomp would be a great upgrade of Bite and could act like an attack skill. But as ants are generally the smallest and weakest in the food chain, none of these would actually help in survival realistically. So, he chose the Stealth skill, and for body modification, he chose better eyesight. Suddenly, his eyes started to burn like they were on fire, and the intensity increased with time. It felt like his eyes would pop out. Well, for Anthony, it was really frustrating to only be able to see a few centimeters, but finally, after a long hour, the pain stopped, and as he opened his eyes, he didn't feel any changes as he was still in a small tunnel. Now, all prepared, he decided it was time to explore. After a while, in front of him were 2 tunnels. The first one led to where he encountered the Croco monster, so he chose the second tunnel. After some time, he started to see the exit of the tunnel, and as his eyesight was better, he was able to see some sort of twisting and branching blue-like veins in the walls. Curious, he slowly crawled outside the cave, but what he saw shocked him to his core. There was a huge cave, but in there was a huge, ferocious, deadly monster crawling, which he was still not able to see clearly as his vision was only clear up to 1.5 meters. As each individual ant has terrible sense, they normally act together to kill and defeat larger prey. But Anthony was all alone. So now his first priority was to improve his eyesight until he would be able to spot a twitching cockroach from 5 meters. And yes, I don't know why. A twitching cockroach, I am also confused. But just then, he noticed a weird sound in his antennae. Curious, he decided to follow the sound and crawled along the cave's ceiling to avoid getting caught in the eyesight of the monster. But even after crawling for a while, it was still difficult for him to focus with his blurry vision, and the strange blue veins were making it even harder for him to concentrate. Then finally, after crawling onto a sharp-hanging stone, he noticed a drop of water and realized there was a very big pond, and these strange blue lines were the reflection of the pond. But the sound was not from the pond. Then, as he checked his surroundings, he got terrified, seeing bloodthirsty monsters. And just when a wolf was about to notice Anthony, he barely hid behind a rock. Well, it was too close. One mistake, and he would have died. Now, it was finally the right time for Anthony to test his new skill, stealth. As he whispered stealth in his mind, the skill got activated and his body became transparent. This was fascinating for Anthony. He wondered if there was any magic power needed to maintain this skill. Then he remembered he didn't have any MP, so he decided to use this skill for a long time to test its limit. Using stealth, Anthony started to observe the beasts closely. First, he came close toward the wolf-like monster, and then he noticed this was not any normal wolf. The wolf was a mixture of a wolf and a lizard. Then he noticed his worst enemy, the home wrecker, baby snatcher, and girlfriend killer, the crocobeast. But then Anthony noticed something strange. Why weren't any of these dangerous creatures attacking each other? Anthony wondered, did the ant colony not get along with the monsters in the cave? Well, Anthony wouldn't be getting any answers by staying in one place, so he decided to move a little closer. As he also wanted to check out that long black monster, his only strategy was to move slowly and steadily. And finally, after many tough minutes, he started to feel tired. But just then, the system notified him that his stealth skill leveled up to level 2. This made Anthony extremely happy, thinking he must have traveled a significant distance, but in reality, he hadn't even traveled 5 meters. Without knowing this, he was extremely happy, thinking his suspicion was correct that he didn't need magic power to use skills and that his skills could be trained by using them. It was like killing 2 birds with 1 arrow. He was also increasing his stealth skill while gathering information. Then he finally came close to that long, thick-looking monster. From afar, it looked like a clump, but as he came a little closer, Anthony vomited on the spot because of the foul smell, and, well, they were having sex. Now, as Anthony saw this unholy scene, he needed holy water to cleanse his eyes, and the last monster was a thick lizard with spikes on its body. Well, Anthony, seeing them, started to give a wicked smile. He had a very good plan, but for that to work, he needed more information. So for the next few hours, Anthony, while hidden, observed each and every movement and behavior of all the monsters. After 1 hour, he noticed the first pair of monsters to leave. The water pool was the centipede monster and the crocobeast. But strangely, they headed to the same spot. Well, the croca might really like to play with the naughty centipedes. Then, after 2 hours, the lizard wolf beast went into a small tunnel in the south, and lastly, the spiky lizard dug a hole and went inside the wall. Now, all the required information was gathered, and with a wicked smile, Anthony's first target was the spiky lizard. Just then, the system notified him that his stealth skill had leveled up to level 3, which made Anthony even happier. Well, now, before the big fight, Anthony needed to do some more preparations. He needed his own house. So he activated his digging skill and started digging to make his own nest. Finally, after digging for a long time and shaping his nest, the system notified him his digging reached level 2, and he successfully created a level 1 nest. Anthony finally took a sigh of relief, and at this point, he realized although he didn't need MP to activate his skills, he really gets hungry the more skill he uses. And at this point, Anthony was just starving from hunger. Then the scene shifts, and we see Anthony, once again, climbed onto the same pointy rock and started to wait for the right opportunity to attack his prey. But at this point, he was just too damn hungry. His vision was getting blurry. His strength was leaving his body, and the only thought that was coming to his mind was all the delicious food from Earth: chocolate, cake, steak, bread, and the hunger was making his mind all foggy. To him, the croc-a-beast was looking like a delicious meat steak, and the centipede was looking like tasty noodles. Anthony had used way too long for the preparation of his next move. He studied each and every monster's behavior for a whole 2 days. While thinking all this, due to weakness, Anthony's grip loosened and he almost fell into the water. But the biggest mystery was this magical glowing pond. According to Anthony, this was not any normal water, so he had to be careful not to fall into it. But on the flip side, due to using his stealth and dig for the whole 2 days, his stealth leveled up to level 3 and his dig to level 3. Just then, Anthony felt a vibration, and it was the smell of his prey, the lizard monster. The time had finally come. This lizard monster lives alone and only crawls out from his cave each day to drink water. An isolated creature with predictable, slow movements. An easy prey. As the lizard monster came close to the pond, Anthony gave a really sinister smile. Using his stealth mode, he started following it, waiting for the right position to strike. The only thing Anthony had to be careful about was those pointy thorns. One strike and a hole would be punctured into his stomach. Finally, the moment came. As the lizard was drinking water, this was the moment Anthony had been waiting for. Anthony jumped high and used his acid throw, and green acid came from his mouth, burning the lizard's left arm. As the lizard was groaning, he was in immense pain. Anthony immediately activated his stealth mode and went into hiding, but the lizard was already aggroed onto Anthony, so he was able to see Anthony even in his stealth mode. The lizard, furious, started to climb the wall to eat Anthony, but was unable to climb due to his thick, fat body. Well, Anthony, on the other hand, from the ceiling started taunting the lizard. Even though the lizard is slow, it was able to climb walls, which is why Anthony first damaged its arm so its ability to climb would be destroyed. More furious, the lizard swung his tail and destroyed the entire wall, but Anthony jumped and dodged the attack and once again used acid spit on the head of the lizard. Now, at this point, the lizard was really in immense pain. He started to groan in pain, and in his last struggle, was attacking Anthony with his tail, but Anthony was easily able to dodge all his attacks. The fight was going in favor of Anthony, but he couldn't let this drag out any longer or other beasts might come and third-party them. The lizard was finally slowing down. His breath was getting slow. So, Anthony thought of coming a little closer, but the lizard, in his last effort, launched an ultra-fat attack with his tail, which almost blew Anthony's head off. Anthony barely dodged the attack. This made the lizard off balance, and seeing this chance, Anthony jumped onto the lizard's body, grabbed the lizard's ass, and started clapping him, grabbed the lizard's body tight, and started munching the lizard's head. The pain was so intense that the lizard fainted. Well, Anthony also didn't want to kill, but if he didn't, then he would die of hunger. Then once again, Anthony started to spit acid all over the lizard's body, and the system informed him that his acid shot leveled up to level 2. But still, after some time passed, the lizard didn't die. Now, Anthony didn't want to do this, but he had to. The next moment, Anthony used his bite skill and started to tear the lizard into pieces. And finally, after a long half hour of biting, the lizard finally died, and his bite skill also leveled up to level 3. Now, at this joyful moment, Anthony really felt victorious. All his hard work and effort were successful, but then he realized that in his past life he never did this much hard work to achieve anything. All he did was read books. But just then, the system notified Anthony that he had killed a level 2 Spinetta Lacertos. Anthony gained XP, reached level 2, and also gained 1 skill point. But something started to bug Anthony. The name of the lizard seemed to be written in Latin. Then he remembered his own species was written as Formica, which means wood ants in Latin. As Anthony's hobby was ant keeping, he used to read many books from which he remembered this name. So, Anthony thought if all the creatures are named in Latin, then his knowledge that he had would come in handy. Anthony started to get proud of himself for reading all those books. Finally, after all the thinking, Anthony's hunger grew even stronger, and voila, he instantly started to devour the lizard. But little did he know, the taste of the lizard was truly disgusting, and he instantly vomited everything he ate. It was like he was eating vomit. Although Anthony didn't want to, he somehow devoured the entire lizard monster. But just then, the voice of Gandalf startled him. The system notified him that Anthony had consumed a new source of biomass. So he gained 1 biomass point and also unlocked the basic profile of the lizard monster. This made Anthony weirdly happy, and he decided to head to his nest before other monsters might come due to the smell of blood. But while returning to his nest, he noticed the naughty centipede and other monsters, still drinking the mysterious water without even noticing that one of their comrades had gone missing. Several minutes later, Anthony finally reached his nest and opened his status window to check all the juicy skill points. Now, his HP was 30, his MP was still 0, and all his other stats had also increased significantly. Now there was a very tough decision to take. He only had 2 biomass points, so what to mutate? But well, he had already decided from the start that first, he would be upgrading his eyesight, so without any delay, he mutated his eyes, which consumed 2 biomass points. Once again, his eyes started to burn like hell. Even though he had experienced this once, it was still very painful. Finally, after a long hour, the pain stopped, and as Anthony slowly opened his eyes, his vision indeed became clearer than before, but compared to a human, it was still far worse. Now it was time for the skill point. But this was not such a tough choice as he already had a skill in mind, tunnel sense. There are too many unknowns in this cave, and tunnel sense would broaden his range, allowing him to explore further and still make it back to his nest without any issue. So he instantly used his skill point to get tunnel sense, and as soon as he did, he started to feel really weird. He felt like water was running through his hair in a shower, except it was happening inside his head. And for some reason, his little PP was getting more sensitive. Finally, after a few minutes, the system notified that he had successfully acquired tunnel sense. This sensation was so calming that Anthony started to feel sleepy, and, well, he slept on the bed he made with leaves he had gathered. While Anthony was in deep sleep, he felt like he was flying and sleeping on a cloud, and suddenly he fell from the cloud. Startled, he woke up only to find he was falling in reality, and he fell on his face on the ground. Now, fully awake, it was time to explore more and find his next target. But before that, with a wicked smile, Anthony wanted to try something else. Anthony again, with a dramatic tone, shouted, "Unlock!" while making a heart. But, well, nothing happened. After that, he tried many keywords like access profile and open sesame, which meant access profile in Latin, but nothing happened. Well, Anthony was trying to open the information tab of the lizard monster he killed. Just yesterday, Gandalf's voice informed him that he had unlocked the basic information of the lizard beast. However, he was struggling to access the right keyword to open the info tab. Just then, Anthony got an idea, and once again, while falling from the ceiling in a dramatic manner, he shouted, "Spinetta Lacertos!" and the info of the lizard monster appeared in front of Anthony, making him really excited and happy. But there was nothing special. The only info that was present was that the spine of the lizard contains venom and everything was hidden. This made Anthony really frustrated, but he pulled himself together, thinking, perhaps he will get more info if he killed and consumed more thorny lizards. Oh, the English translation of Spinetta Lacertos is thorny lizard. So just like that, Anthony, while singing, started to crawl toward his next prey. After a while, Anthony reached his favorite place, the same pointy rock, while singing, and once again started to observe the entire area. He didn't notice anything special, but because his eyesight had upgraded, now the pool seemed to be glowing brighter than before. But there was one thing that was bugging the bug Anthony. Since day one, Anthony had done all kinds of workouts and hardships, but until now, he hadn't felt any thirst. Yet all the other monsters always come to drink from the pool, and since he is also a monster, why isn't he feeling thirsty? So now, Anthony's main goal was to find the secret of this mysterious water. To Anthony, there are two possibilities. Either he is different from other monsters and doesn't feel thirst, or the other monsters also don't feel thirst, but they drink this water because there is something different about this water. To test his theory, Anthony decided to also drink the waiter. He slowly started crawling toward the waiter. He didn't want to get found out by them. But as he came close to the wolf lizard, the wolf sensed Anthony, but suddenly the wolf stopped, all scared and panicky. This confused Anthony, but as he turned back, there was the pervy centipede waiting for him. Anthony was in deep trouble. But surprisingly, nothing happened. They didn't attack Anthony, but just went past him calmly without doing anything. Well, this was all part of Anthony's plan. The only reason he risked showing himself in front of all these beasts, who would kill him in one blow, was that for the past 2 days he observed that for some reason he never witnessed any beasts who are close to the pool attacking each other. They passively come, drink, and go away peacefully. But it was not like all the monsters are all lovey-dovey with each other. They do fight and kill each other, but not near the pool. So, Anthony concluded, there is definitely something special about this water. Now finally, in front of the pool, Anthony, all curious. Well, he didn't want to drink this suspicious water, but his curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to drink it. But as soon as he did, his tongue got half burned. It was like he drank hydrochloric acid. His stomach also started to burn from inside. Now, lying on the ground, all in pain, Anthony couldn't believe it and was in confusion as to why all these creatures were drinking this painful acid all day. But the strange part was, aside from the burning sensation, there were no changes in his body, no power-up. Nothing. Well, now that Anthony had done what he came for, he could explore elsewhere. But before leaving, he decided to take a little more sip. But again, as he did, his insides started to burn, and he decided to never drink this holy shit again. Now that his curiosity about the pool was satisfied, he decided to explore the entire cave using his tunnel sense. After activating tunnel sense, Anthony discovered various tunnels inside the cave, and he started to explore each tunnel one by one. After a while, Anthony found something exciting. Yes, stairs! Curious and excited, Anthony decided to check out the stair. As he did, he noticed these stairs were directly carved into the stone, and on top of that, there were some sorts of designs on the stairs, which means there are humans in this world. This made Anthony extremely happy, and he started to fantasize about the people of this world. He wondered if there would be dwarves and hot elves in this world. Now, the point was where these stairs would lead him, to the outside of the dungeon, or to another part of the dungeon. Thinking all this, Anthony started to climb down the stairs, but then noticed something. He was easily able to climb down the stairs, unlike any small ants. That means Anthony can measure himself using these stairs. If he assumes people in this world are roughly the same size as those on Earth, then by comparing his size to the stairs, he will be able to make a rough estimation of how large he is. So, according to this theory, Anthony must be probably tall enough to come up to a full-grown adult's knee. Then, with a jolt of realization, he realized if his theory is correct, then that means all those monsters who looked so terrifying and massive to him from a human perspective would actually be fairly small. That means all the monsters in this area are actually very weak. This made Anthony terrified. If all these monsters are weak, that means outside the dungeon there will be more powerful and huge, terrifying monsters. This thought was enough to make Anthony not go down the stair. He didn't want to go straight into his death, but in his panic, he actually accidentally climbed down the stairs, and as he did, he noticed something. There were wall torches hanging on the wall. This made Anthony very excited. This means that civilization was very near. After that, Anthony continued to explore deeper into the dungeon, and the deeper he went, the blue water veins slowly started to vanish and more signs of civilization started to appear. This made Anthony's heart pound very fast. The thought of him meeting a person from another world was making him excited. Anthony started to fantasize about how he would interact with humans if he met one. Would they attack him? And what if he tried to communicate with them using sign language? While he was thinking all this, the passage started to become more narrow, and finally, after a while, Anthony was greeted by bright, warm sunlight. In front of him was the exit of the dungeon. This made Anthony very emotional and happy, but his happiness didn't last for very long. As Anthony discovered a large door and some sort of room made under the dungeon, just then, inside the door, two humans walked in. The long-haired woman was holding a red crystal. Just then, the black-haired boy started to chant something, and his hand started to glow. This made Anthony overly excited. Seeing magic is really possible in this world, but his happiness didn't last long when the red crystal in this pitch darkness suddenly, like a laser, pinpointed Anthony. That red crystal was actually a monster detector. With this, the episode ends here. Write a little next incher in the comment for the next episode. Goodbye.